guys, it's Justine here from I Should Read That, and today I am bringing you my December 2025 wrap-up. So December proved to be a very fruitful reading month for me. I actually ended up hitting my stretch goal of 130 books in 2025. The most I had read in a year previously was 2020, COVID, when there was nothing else to do, and I read 126 books. So I'm really, really pleased with that. And in order to hit that goal, I read 12 books in December. So I've got my stats written down here. If you're curious, of those 12 books, 2 of them were audiobooks, 3 of them were ebooks, and 7 of them were physical books. So 1.5 of those books that I read were from the library. We'll get into why there's a half there in a little bit. And 2 of them were from Kobo Plus, which is quite interesting, and it's something I'm going to try to use a little bit more in the coming year. And then of the genres that I read 4 horror books, 3 fantasy books, 1 literary fiction book, 1 nonfiction book, 2 crime books, and 1 classic. But anyway, these are the 12 books that we read. Dax counts as having read some of those because she was in my lap basically the entire time. So the first thing that I read in December was Moan. This is by Junji Ito. It's a new release and it's another collection of his manga horror short stories. I almost always enjoy Junji Ito's books, especially when they are his short story collections. I tend to prefer those over his single narrative books. And this was a really good one. It was really fun. I thoroughly enjoyed this. His artwork and his writing is so freaky and it's just fabulous. So I gave this 4.5 out of 5 stars. I am always going to be excited for a new Junji Ito book. So I've just realized that I messed up my stats a little bit. I read 2.5 books from the library because I got The Golden Enclaves by Naomi Novik on audiobook from Libby. So this was a funny one because I really enjoy this series, but I read the second book, gosh, like 4 or 5 years ago maybe, and I'm not really one to reread books. I don't love rereading books in order to get to the last book in a trilogy, for example, like this, because I just know myself, I will never end up getting around to reading those books that I haven't gotten to. So I was a little bit daunted by this because I wasn't sure if I would be able to remember what happened and all of that, but actually I fell back into this really easily, and I think this might be one of my favorite books in the trilogy. So without spoilers, this series is basically like the magical school trope gone horribly, horribly wrong. Everything is trying to kill you. You graduate basically if you survive. And our main character was prophesized to be a evil sorceress in the making, and she doesn't really want to be an evil sorceress. She's kind of trying to fight her own nature. This was really fun. I really loved, again without spoilers, the perspective of the wider world that we got in this, and I love seeing how these kind of magical societies and the enclaves and such are built and how everything runs and all of that. I really, really enjoyed that, and because of that I really liked this book a lot. I gave this 4 stars. It did kind of have its slower moments, which I feel is sort of indicative of the series overall, but it's a really fun series. If you're interested, I would highly recommend it. I really like the audiobooks. So I read a lot of nonfiction in the last quarter of 2025. I'm not much of a nonfiction reader, but for whatever reason, this is just what my brain was absolutely craving, and I've decided I'm going to lean into that a little bit more and read a lot of nonfiction about subjects that I'm interested in. So this book came out quite a long time ago. I think it was like 2003, 2006, and it's always been on my mind because it's such a fascinating subject. It stands out from the crowd quite a fair bit. So this is Stiff: The Curious Lives of Human Cadavers by Mary Roach. This is all about what happens to our bodies after we die and we donate our bodies for medical research, for whatever kind of research, and it was absolutely fascinating. It is horribly gruesome, as I'm sure you can probably imagine. Just to give you a taste, the opening chapter, which is really, really, really interesting, is her going to basically a plastic surgeon practice forum, and each person has a chopped off human head in a roasting tin, and they basically practice things like, facelifts and sutures and such, like eye lifts and things, so that they can practice on these non-living people, so that they will be able to perform these procedures on living patients much more effectively. That kind of thing is absolutely fascinating to me. There's a lot about military research and car crashes and plane crashes and all those kinds of things, how human bodies can help us learn more about sort of safety and the wider world. It was really, really, really interesting. I really enjoyed this, but it's definitely one for those with a stronger stomach, I think. So I gave this 4.5 out of 5 stars. I thought it was really just absolutely fascinating. I ended up doing myself a massive favor at the end of the year, and I read a duology that has been on my shelf for absolute ages. I've been really wanting to read it and just never really got around to it. and I finally did, and it was fabulous. So I read both Pet and Bitter by Akwaeke Emezi. So these books are ones that are kind of hard to explain what they're about because it's a lot of metaphor, it's a lot of kind of reading between lines and such. But basically, in the first book, Pet, we are in a city called Lucille, which used to be overrun by monsters. The monsters are all gone, the angels have come to help us out, and now Lucille is a wonderful, happy, beautiful, lovely place to be. We follow a young girl named Jam, and Jam's mother is an artist. Her mother paints a painting of a creature, and Jam accidentally brings it to life, and it turns out that this creature is an avenging creature on the hunt for a monster in a very unexpected place. And then Bitter is a prequel to Pet. Would recommend reading this first, and this follows Jam's mother, Bitter, in a period in her life that is referenced in this book when she is much younger and sort of terrible things happen. I really love these. I have read one book by Akwaeke Emezi before, and that was You've Made a Fool of Death with Your Beauty, which is very different. That is very adult romance. These are YA fantasy, and they are incredible. They're absolutely well worth the read. If these have been sitting on your TBR like they were for me for absolute ages, I would highly recommend picking them up. They're a hard read. Nothing hugely explicit happens, but there's a lot about abuse and the terrible things that people do to each other in these books. But it is ultimately hopeful and really lovely, and about a little girl who makes a huge difference in someone's world. And these were wonderful. I cannot recommend these more highly. Just as a little bit of a spoiler for my best books of the year, one of these is going to be on that list. I gave these 5 stars and 4.5 out of 5 stars. You can probably guess which one is going to be on that list. I have been really struggling with deciding what I'm going to read next over the past couple of months, and when I do have that problem, I choose one of two things: either a T. Kingfisher book, which we'll get to in a minute, and my old standby, which is these translated Japanese crime fiction books. So I read 2 of those this past month, and both of these were on Kobo Plus. So if you're interested in any of these Japanese crime books that I'm always yapping about, and you have Kobo Plus, I would highly recommend checking them out because they have tons of them. So the first of those books that I read was Seicho Matsumoto's A Quiet Place. I was talking about this book to my mom, who hasn't read it yet, but she is the queen of crime fiction, and she says that it's a very famous book, and I can absolutely understand why. So this book follows a man whose wife, who's quite young, suddenly passes away of a heart attack while she is out and about, and he decides he's going to try to figure out if something sinister happened to her, and he becomes completely obsessed and consumed by this. This isn't a classic whodunit. It's not like a lot of the crime fiction that I've read, and I think that throws a lot of people off because I have gone ahead and looked at quite a lot of the reviews, and it's very mixed. I loved this because I love seeing the psychology of a man who just absolutely spirals, trying to desperately to figure out what's happened. And it's a lot about his character. And I think that's absolutely fascinating. Can't say much more than that. But this was really good. If you're looking for something that's a little bit different, whether or not you are a crime fiction fan, I would highly recommend picking this up. If you love sort of deep character work, this was fascinating. I gave this 4.5 out of 5 stars. And another series that I have caught up on now, this was apparently the year of me actually getting my ass in gear about series, I read The Little Sparrow Murders by Seiichi Yokomizu. This is the last of his books in the Kosuke Kandaichi series that I had not read yet. I have found the series to be a little bit uneven. Some of them are more interesting than others, although ultimately the kind of the twist and the revelation is always really good in these books. But I loved this one. It was so much fun. I have always described these books and a lot of these kind of Japanese crime books that are being translated as like, if you love like a hidden passageway and like a secret heir and a cursed family where like everyone's getting bumped off because they're all horrible, like this is the best series, and this is a really good example of why I love these books so much. So we have our detective, Kosuke Kandaichi, and he's like, I am going to go on holiday. I can go somewhere for a month, really nice and quiet, but I'm going to stop in on my old friend. And his old friend's like, hey, awesome, you're going to go to this small spa town. Did you know that there's an unsolved murder from 20 years ago? And he's like, no, I'm not interested. And his friend's like, are you sure? And he's like, okay, fine, I'm really interested. And events unfold that are related to this mystery that happened 20 years ago. If you're looking for a really good time for a winter's evening, these are great. I gave this 4.5 out of 5 stars. It's one of my favorites in the series. As I said, when I am looking for something to read, if I can't decide what I want to read, it's either Japanese crime books or it's T. Kingfisher, and I read her upcoming release. This is Wolfworm. This is a new horror book. It's Southern Gothic horror. It comes out in March, and it is fabulous. This book is set in 1899 in North Carolina, and we follow a woman named Sonia, who is a very talented illustrator, a scientific illustrator. She was doing work for her father before he passed away, and now she kind of has no prospects. So she ends up taking a post with a sort of eccentric, not very nice naturalist in his North Carolina home, and she is going to illustrate his collection of insects for his published work. But because this is T. Kingfisher, we have a missing wife, we have a mysterious predecessor, we have blood thieves in the woods, and it's just so, so good. This book will give you some fun new insect phobias. Oh my god, it is gross, it is graphic, it will make your skin crawl, and it's so, so, so good. I absolutely love this book. I gave it 5 stars. T. Kingfisher is always a reliable author for me. So I am a notorious Charles Dickens hater. I got my university degree in Victorian literature, and I've got some beef with Mr. Dickens. But every year on Christmas Eve, usually if we have watched Muppets Christmas Carol, I decide I wish that I had bothered to pick up A Christmas Carol for Christmas time. And I never do it until this year. We finished Muppets Christmas Carol at like 10:30 at night on Christmas Eve, and I marched over to my parents' bookshelves and I grabbed Christmas Carol off of the shelf, and because it is a long short story slash short novella, I did end up reading it, finishing it on Christmas Day, and I actually quite enjoyed it, so I apologized for all the bad things that I've said about Mr. Dickens in the past, although nothing can change my mind about Oliver Twist. I'm sure everyone knows the story of A Christmas Carol. We have Ebenezer Scrooge, who is a horrible, horrible man. He doesn't like Christmas. He's a nasty, mean miser, and he gets visited by 3 spirits on Christmas who show him the error of his ways. If you've ever seen a Muppets Christmas Carol, it is a fantastically faithful adaptation of the actual book, and I was very, very surprised to see that. I think I saw something online when I was looking into it, like all but like 6 of Gonzo's lines in A Muppets Christmas Carol are directly pulled from the book. It's a great adaptation. Would highly recommend picking it up. It's a really sweet, lovely story and some great like bangers of one-liners in it. I gave it 4 stars because it was lovely. One of my least favorite books of the year I absolutely fucking hated, and I have a rant that I'm going to try to keep as short as possible because I could just go on and on about it. This is Orbital by someone whose name I can't be bothered to remember. This is the novella, and it won the Booker Prize either this year or last year. It's a recent Booker Prize winner. So my family and I love to discuss the fact that the Booker Prize has like gone massively downhill over the past however many years, and I think that Orbital is a perfect example of just the fact that the Booker Prize winners are a bit wank. So this should sound like something that I absolutely love. It is set in the, I think, the International Space Station, or a fictional version of it. We are following the astronauts as they orbit around the Earth, and we get their perspectives from space, reflections on life. We get, you know, snap shots of their history and why they became astronauts and all that stuff, and it fucking sucked. I really hated it. And I was so prepared to love it. I was really, really prepared to love it because I heard a lot of people that I follow and I love really hated this book, and I was like, I'm gonna give it its fair shot because like I think I'll really like it, and I didn't. There's a reason that I didn't like it. If you were going to be making these kinds of books, you have to have characters whose names you can actually remember and you care about enough to care about the stories that they are telling you and the wisdom that the author is trying to impart through these characters. I can't tell you a goddamn thing about any of these characters except for one. There is one who is interesting, and that is only because of one small piece of her history, which I thought was really beautifully written. And there are a lot of beautifully written bits in this book, but a lot of it was just like, this is sci-fi for people who think that they're better than genre fiction, who think that like science fiction is just like Star Wars and that's it. Just instead of picking up this book, just go read some Temi O, okay? Do You Dream of Terra too? It does a lot of the same things. It's actually like interesting and good and well written and really thought-provoking and wonderful and beautiful, and it's a fabulous book. I'm ranting. I hated this. I gave it 2 stars because some of it was really beautiful, some of it was genuinely really lovely, but Moving on to something that I did really enjoy. I read the last of Andrew Joseph White's books that I had not picked up yet. That is Compound Fracture. I really love this one. I think that this might be my favorite of his books, and I think that I got from this book what I was hoping to get from You Weren't Meant to Be Human, which I did actually DNF for a number of reasons, not just the pregnancy horror. The pregnancy horror had a lot to do with it because it was a lot. So this is a YA horror book, and in this book we follow Miles Abernathy, who is a trans boy who's living in Appalachia. And Miles is on one side of a like centuries-long blood feud between his family and another. The other family happens to be basically the people who rule the town. The sheriff, Sheriff Davies, is on the other side of this, and he makes everyone's lives absolutely miserable, especially the Abernathy family. At the start of the book, Miles has some photographic proof that the sheriff has been involved in some really, really shady things, which includes the death of some of the town's citizens. And before he can go ahead and sort of do anything with this evidence, he has the absolute shit beaten out of him by the sheriff's son and some of his friends. So Miles and his best friend decide that they are going to get revenge, and it is fantastic. I really, really loved the vibes of this book. I loved a lot of what he had to say. This book is full of anger, but it's also full of an absolute love for this area. And I think Andrew Joseph Wright is from Appalachia, and you can really, really feel that through the book. And Appalachia does not have the best reputation. It's something that he addresses in this book. And, you know, there's a lot of stereotypes. It is the place where the opioid epidemic started in a lot of ways. Let's say it doesn't have a lot of good PR for people outside of the area, but the way that he talks about it and how much he loves it and how much Miles loves where he's from and wants to stand up for the people of his town and his area, I thought was just wonderful. I've never really read anything like that. I also really loved a lot of the characters. Miles is a wonderful character, and I love a lot of the people who surround him, even though they are quite complicated, shall we say, characters. I really love the light supernatural elements. This one doesn't go quite as hard into kind of like the fantasy as his previous books do. We've got some very, very light ghostiness here, and I thought it was like the exact right touch. And this is just a wonderful book. If you have not read this yet, I think it gets a little overshadowed by his other two books, especially Hell Followed With Us. They're all fabulous. This is well worth picking up. It's just fantastic. I gave this 5 stars. And the last of the books that I read in December, I absolutely loved. I had actually started this a few months ago, and I was like, I hate this character, and I hate everything about this book, but I picked it up again, and I'm really, really glad I did. This is Boy Parts by Eliza Clark. This is another hard one to explain because it doesn't have a huge amount of plot. It's all about this woman named Irina who's beautiful. She's in her late 20s, and she is a sort of artsy photographer. She takes sort of erotic photos of the men that she meets, and she's not a nice person. Let's put it that way. This book is all about Irina and her kind of build up to this gallery showing that she's going to have in London, which is a huge break for her in her art. And why she is the way that she is, her spiraling and how she perceives the world and the world perceives her. It's a really, really difficult book to explain, but it was fantastic. I absolutely loved this book. It was such a good one. It's not going to be for everyone. It was almost very much not for me, but if you're in the right mood, if you love her other books, if you love kind of a deeply character-driven book, I would highly recommend this. I gave this 4.5 out of 5 stars. So those are the books that I read in December, wrapping up my 2025 reading year. I would love to hear in the comments below if you've read any of these books. Tell me what you thought of them, and I would also love to hear what the last books that you read in 2025 were. That is it for this video, and I will talk to you soon.